What's going on? What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to the Disc Advantage, the series where we explore how disc can transform the way organizations work. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Truelove. I'm a specialist in organizational climate and culture, where we help leaders create workplaces to where everyone can thrive. And we are back with another session. And as you can see, the topic for tonight is Now You're Speaking My Language. What are we talking about when I say now you're speaking my language? This is all about what are the rules of engagement to effective communication, understanding that there are different languages that people speak. And the more that we are able to communicate in the language that others are receptive to, we are more effective in our receptibility. We are more effective in the way in which we can reach. What do you think about this? Have you ever, because I want to put us in a space to where we can receive what we're going to talk about tonight. Have you ever heard someone at some point in time share a message and the way that they spoke to you, it irritated you, it irked you, to the nth degree, so much so that you were very much so closed off to the information that they were sharing with you, right? That individual, whoever it was not speaking your language. I don't know exactly what it was, but we may talk about it tonight. But there was something that they said in a way that did not resonate with you. Now, just think about somebody else sharing that same message in a different way, a way in which you resonate with, a way in which you connected with, a way in which it was just like easier or more palatable in a way. That other person that shared that very same message shared it in a way that was in your language, in a way that resonated with you. Now, just think about that. We can all go about just thinking, okay, if I share a message, then other people are just going to receive it. Yeah, we can go about it that way, but we may be missing the mark, or we may have a lot of carnage in a way that we do not have to have if we are able to learn these things. So we're going to talk about what are the rules of engagement to these different communication styles. And I want to talk about tonight's conversation. We're going to talk about it in a concept that a lot of you may know of, which is love languages. For those of you that are familiar with this, there's a book called The Five Love Languages. And in this book, it has this terminology that refers to talk about our love tank. And we all have different, ways in which we communicate, or ways in which we have love languages. And we speak the love language, our love language, effectively. But we may not necessarily speak the individuals that are around us. We may not speak their love language. So what can happen is we can be at a deficit. And that is a kind of a terminology or a language that a lot of us may have heard of. And so I want to share with you all that in the same way that we have love language. Just think about this: effective communication is a love language, because those individuals that you have great communication with. Just think about this: if you are going to a family function, or if you have some individuals that you pick up the phone for, but then you have a lot of other individuals that they're missed calls, right? There are individuals that you will pick up the phone for, and there are some people that I can talk to them a little bit later. There's a connection. There's something that you get from the conversations with those individuals that you pick up for, but there's also something that you do not receive from those individuals that you're not as excited to communicate with. That speaks to that love language, right? That speaks to there's not, I don't necessarily want to say a void, but there's something that's being filled. There's something that something is being filled, or something is being fulfilled when we communicate with certain individuals. And so, in the same way, thinking about this from a workplace perspective, how can we understand that there are individuals that we work with that speak different languages? And can we discover what those are and learn how to speak them? I was doing a training one time, and I asked two people in here that spoke a different language to see if they to start speaking to each other. And in different I guess places where I do this, people speak different languages. One a place I did, they were speaking Spanish, and one they were speaking German. And you can just see like these individuals that are speaking Spanish with each other, like they understand what's going on, but everybody else in the room is like, wait a minute, what are they saying? Right? In the same way, when the individuals speaking German, they understood, but nobody else like understood what was going on. Those two individuals that spoke that same language had a connection that nobody else around them had. While everybody is trying to figure out, everybody is lost at this current moment. There's two individuals that are pretty much on the same page. That is exactly what I'm talking about when I speak about effective communication being a love language is something that brings you together. When we're thinking about this in a workplace, there's something that we have to really think about, and something we have to kind of rethink, something that we've been taught. And I say this in a way that we've been taught something that we need to unlearn. Right, as we get older, we realize maybe there's some things that we have to unlearn and relearn some things. And one of those is that we were taught with this thing was the golden rule, which is treat others the way you want to be treated. And I mean, I heard this all my life growing up. I don't know if some of you all were taught this. Treat other people, and they were like, this is the rule to live by. Well, what if, just want to throw this out there, what if somebody else doesn't want to be treated the way you want to be treated? Right? Have we thought about that? There are some things that you're okay with in your life. There are some things that work well for you. And those same things may not work well for other people. And if we just go about our lives thinking that, hey, I'm going to treat everybody else the way I want to be treated, then we miss out on the opportunity to grow and learn, which is why we're going to introduce something that may be familiar to some of you all, but it may not be. And that's this concept of the platinum rule. And the platinum rule states that we treat other people the way they want to be treated, which is a completely different context. One of them is saying, hey, treat everybody else the way you want to be treated. And then the other one says, treat other people the way they want to be treated, which means that I have to learn, I have to grow to understand how exactly do you desire to be treated. And that allows us to lean in to learn and grow, as I just mentioned. And as we're growing, we understand, okay, these are some of the things that they would like for me to do. And now we have to take ownership of that in a workplace environment or in whatever environments that we operate in, like take ownership of that and actually abide by those things. But the challenging thing about that is that in order for me to do that, I have to take you into consideration, right? I really have to care about the people that I'm in relationship with. I have to care about the people that I'm connected to in order for me to think about what you need in this moment and not just to selfishly think about what I need. This is why treating people the way you want to be treated is easy, because I just think about myself. What would I want in this situation? But when I have to think about you, when I have to take you into consideration, I have to remember in this particular moment, this is what you need. That's challenging because it doesn't allow the selfish nature that we have to be the priority in this moment. Like someone else is the priority. And I want to kind of like translate that rule into what we're talking about, which is communication. And so what's the platinum rule of communication? Speak to others the way they want to be spoken to. Think about that. So how does this individual prefer this message to be shared? How does this individual prefer this message to be shared? And can I adjust, adapt my communication to the different styles, to the different people that I communicate with so often? And I'll tell you a sign to know whether or not you're an effective communicator, because communication equals connection. Like when you have somebody, like you can see when someone's connected, when they're communicating with each other, like there's a synergy to it, right? But you can also see when there is a disconnection, when there's communication that goes on, body language, like like exactly what I'm talking about. When someone is sharing something, but you can see that the other person that they're sharing that message with, they're disengaged from it. Like this is one of the clear signs that like you are not connected to the individuals, or that I won't say not connected to them, but when we're communicating, it's not creating that connection that communication should be had, right? And so what we're going to talk about is that, like, how can we take other people into consideration? How can we understand what their styles are, and what can we do about that as it relates to our communication? And so last week we spoke about this, and so I'm just going to mention it briefly as a reminder as we get into what we're getting ready to talk about. But the concept of this is that we have different styles, and so I guess the tool that we utilize here is called the DISC, and what it is, it really focuses on different behavioral tendencies and preferences that people have. And what we've done is we also know that it's not just behavior, but there's also communication styles that also come with each of those. And with this science, what it talks about is that we have a way in which we approach these four areas. We approach problems and decisions in a certain type of way. We approach people in a certain type of way. We have a preference for the way we pace ourselves in our environment. And we also have a preference for the way in which we go about established procedures. And that's the behavioral side, but in the same way, those things apply to we communicate around those same things. And so when have a problem or you have a decision that you have to make, some people are maybe more assertive or maybe more thoughtful. And so we go up and down this continuum with whatever your rating is in that area. That's how you approach each one of those. And so I wanted to kind of just reference that really quickly because this is something that we have to understand or something that we need to be reminded of, that there are people that approach problems in a certain way. There are people that communicate about problems in a certain type of way. Some people may be what are more assertive, right? Some people may be more thoughtful. Some people around people may be very lively, right? Maybe very charismatic, and some people may be what more quiet when they're around people. There is no good, there is no bad. We just do things differently. But we have to understand that, like, that other people may operate in a certain type of way. And how can we kind of pick up on these things and understand, hey, that person that is more quiet around people, right? What does that mean? Can we lean in to find out why they communicate in that type of way when they are around people? Is there something that I should know, right? That's the whole platinum rule of communication, which is taking them into consideration, in those things. In the same way with pace, right? How do they communicate as it relates to how fast they do things, or how more spontaneous they like to be when they're, pacing things within their environment? How can we make sure that things are calm? Like individuals that are the peacemakers, right? There are individuals that are that way. And there are also individuals that are not peacemakers when, things are kind of going crazy or whatever the case may be. No good, no bad, but we have to understand these things. In the same way with, established procedures, people doing things the right way, or making sure that things are precise or things are accurate, or really, really care about the quality of things and communicate about those things. Hey, we're supposed to do things this type of way and we should do this every single time. Why does somebody care about the quality or care about us doing the right thing? Because they're very, very high as it relates to that cautiousness or that procedure based things. But then we have individuals that are very challenging when it comes to procedures. That why do we have to do this the same way? When we understand these things, we can understand where someone is coming from, but we can also understand how we can communicate to make sure that we're meeting that need. So in the same way that we're talking about those styles, I want us to take this thing that we introduced earlier, which is love languages. And so I want to elaborate on that a little bit more. There, according to the five love languages, there are five love languages, and we are higher on. Well, we have one of these things that are our strengths, so these things that are more common to us. For example, my love languages are words of affirmation and acts of service. And so when it comes to the book, it tells us that it's easy for me to love in a way that are acts of service, for me to do something for someone. It's easy for me to, affirm someone because that's a way that I like, I prefer to be loved. So I give you an example. My wife's love languages are quality time and physical touch. And so there'll be times to where I want to like do something for my wife because that's the way I prefer to be loved. There's times where I want to maybe say some encouraging things about my wife, but what she desires is what? She desires for quality time, right? She desires for physical touch. And so in the same way, I want to take that same concept that if I do not give that quality time, that physical touch to my wife, she can feel like I'm not loving her in a way that's appropriate, right? So in the same way, when it talks about the disc communication styles or the disc love languages, I want you to think about that. Is there a way to where somebody can feel like their love tank, or feel like their communication tank is being filled in the right way when I communicate in a certain type of way? But also, can I take away more so, like leave them on empty when they do not receive this type of communication? Um, Let me know if y'all understand exactly where I'm coming from, that concept. And so, with that in mind, think about this. When it comes to the D style communicator, what is the thing that would fill their tank? Results, right? Not only just like obtaining results, but like recognition of the results, the things that they did. Now, we said a little bit earlier, they're very assertive, right? Those are individuals that take the lead. Those are individuals that speak up when it's time to make those decisions. And sometimes we can maybe like not feel like filling that tank because of what? Like we feel like they're taking over, right? We feel like they're taking control, like their voice matters the most in that moment. And think about if we start to share those opinions as it relates to them, that would be something that would not be a language that is their love language. So what would fill their love language? Direct, and efficient communication, right? So uh, not not speaking about the things that don't really matter, right? Taking a long time to say something that could have been spoken about or could have been communicated in 1 minute, but we're still talking about it 5 minutes from now. Those are things that are not right speaking their language. What's another thing? Acknowledgement of achievement, right? When we do things, hey, we can lead them that, hey, Daniel, hey, Bill, I love the way you da 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 yesterday when we were in that meeting. The more that we can acknowledge the things that they're doing that are achieving results, or even contributing to things that will allow us to move forward, those are going to be great things for those individuals. And here we have here, right, opportunities to take action, but they thrive when given autonomy to take charge or even make decisions, right? So if we could say, hey, we've been deliberating about this for a while. Hey, Lisa, what do you think about this? Those are moments where individuals that thrive off of this, or they're this type style of communicator, where they will, be filled in those particular type of moments. But let's talk about on the opposite side of that, because we're talking about what fills their love tank. But what are the things that put it on empty? Number one, I'm sorry, not put it on empty, but what are some of the signs that you can tell that their love tank or that their communication tank is empty, right? So if we have a high D and they're super impatient, they're impatient for a reason, right? Because there's something that is going on that is not in the style in which they would have preferred that communication to be taking place. Withdrawal, right? So if you see somebody and you know that they're this style and you see these signs, you have your radar, have your antennas up that, hey, there is something that I can be doing a little bit different. And we should go at the top of the list, which what the things that fill their tank versus the things that are taking it away, right? So if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to drop them down low or reach out to me personally and we can talk about what that means. All right, we're going on to the next one, which is the I. And these individuals, their communication style is all about connection and celebration, right? These are the individuals that are very social. And so what are the things that fill their tank? Positive reinforcement. Uh, Positive reinforcement is a good thing. So like not positive reinforcement just for the sake of it, like genuineness of it. Like, man, that like I really did appreciate, you da 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 da. Like and really being considerate, because just like blanketed praise is not going to be anything that matters to them, because it's all about connection. And you don't get true genuine connection when something is not real, something is not authentic. So those types of things matter. Engage in conversations, right? These are individuals that can get lost in a conversation because connection does matter to them, right? So if you have a high idea you're communicating with, and they're like lost in the sauce, and they're all in it, like those are great moments for them, and they'll walk away, from that conversation feeling like they're on a high, right? So let's talk about the opposite side of that. What are some of the things that that some of the signs that you could tell them what their tank is empty, like drop in energy, right? If they're not bringing that liveliness, that lively communication to the environment anymore, if they feel like more distracted, or they are seeking attention elsewhere. Like think about this: you're communicating with them, and they're like, you could tell that they're not not present within the conversation. That's not the typical traits, or those are not the typical tendencies for someone that is an I style communicator. So what's going on? Something is missing. Something has gone on. And when we notice these signs, hey, think about this. That example that I gave before with the platinum rule for communication. What does this person need in this moment? Lean into discovery versus like judgment, or wow, they're not listening to me. Like I like do some what is it called? Dang, I'm missing a word right now. Investigation, right? Investigate, kind of trying to figure out what exactly is going on that made them kind of leave this conversation when they are normally more engaged. All right, S's, S's. All right. So for all my S's, their communication love language is all about reassurance and support. Like literally, the way in which we can like fill their tank, and the way in which we can make sure that like they are on the high is being consistent, like not being flaky, not changing things last minute, but like consistency, predictability. And so they value like clear expectations and well thought out plans. And so when we're communicating with them, hey, we're going to go to lunch tomorrow, right? What would be signs that their tank is empty is that when a lot of people are like last minute changing things, and you see that they like are not as happy about things as they were before, those are signs that what, like, we've been flaking with them. So the more consistent we can be, the more predictable that we can be, the more that we actually do the things that we say we're going to do, those are good things for them. Like, if you want to make somebody that's an S, like go absolute berserk, like change something last minute. These individuals are planners, are very thoughtful and considerate about the things that they say yes to, and they want other people to do the same thing as well. And so all these things that I'm sharing with you right now are just what, things that we can take into consideration when communicating, when interacting with individuals that are in our environment. And so appreciation of their dependability, right? Like, literally, this is my wife's style of communication. And when I think about her, like, things go much better when I acknowledge her contribution, when I'm thoughtful of that, when I take those things into consideration. Just taking her into consideration in general, like, those types of things matter. When I think about these signs that are taken as empty, like resistance to change, right, withdrawal from conversations, those types of things aren't necessarily the way in which she typically does things, or individuals that have this communication style. And so, if these things are present, that means that something has happened, something has changed the way in which they typically communicate about this. So let's move forward. What about C? Validation of precision. Too many times that there are individuals that are persistent upon things being done in a quality manner, things being done the right way. And for a lot of people that can think that, oh man, these individuals are making us take more time to do things. Like, that's not something that is affirming of, like, the way in which they operate and do things. And so, what are some of the things that fill their tank? Thoroughness and clarity. And so, when I'm coming to them to talk about something, like, think about that. Don't come to them with a plan that's an idea, right? And I haven't thought about, the 10 things that they're going to ask questions about. If I can literally come to them and say, hey, based on the research that I've done, we need to do A, B, and C. What do you think about these three things? That is, I thought this through. I've taken you into consideration. What do you think about, very specific, A? What do you think about B? And what do you think about C? That allows for them to what? Like, communicate back to you in a way that still feels like, hey man, this person is my style. When we talk about that connection, this will be somebody that will be more connected with you while you're communicating with them than if you just like bought some random stuff that they can tell that, you just put this together last minute. These are all things that we should be taking into consideration. Let me rewind back. These are all things that we should know before we even communicate with somebody. What style of the person are you speaking to? And what is the way that you can communicate with them in the most effective way? And when we do that, when we do that, we are literally able to have connection. We're able to have lively conversations no matter what style you're speaking to. And so, some of the things that I've just shared with you are strategies for when you're one-to-one communication. But there are also strategies that you can utilize when you're speaking to groups, because in the same way that they have different communication styles, different love languages, things that kind of fill them up, right? There are strategies for when you're a leader and you have a meeting, that you have to do for the entire company, right? If people have different communication styles, how can you reach the entire room within one message? Here's a strategy called CLEAR, and when you think about it, just think about clear communication as clarity, listen, empathize, align, and resolve. And so, have clarity within your message. Listen, right? Create a moment to where there's a Q&A, right? Actually show empathy, not cutting people off. We know, well, we're not going to take that into consideration. Well, your voice doesn't really matter, right? Align, what does that mean? Bring everyone together, right? We're unifying the group. Hey, there's some point in this message to where we're going to rally the troops. And then resolve, like, in where there's like some type of clear resolution, like to meet those needs of those D's and C's, like literally like little small things that you can put like on the top of your mind that you can take into consideration, knowing that I have different styles of people that I'm going to be communicating with. And one last one that I want to give you as well as we kind of land this plane. This one is called SSA, and I want to give a shout out to a guy that I learned this from. His name is Dewan, And I remember asking him about this, and he shared this with me about this is one of the strategies that he utilizes when communicating with groups, and it's statistics, story, and action. And so start with a statistic. As a matter of fact, I utilize this in the post to this live. 70% of communication, miscommunication happens. Remember that for any of those that saw that. That's a what? That's a statistic. And those are the things that appeal to those who the high D, the problem solving focused individuals, but also the high C's as well, high C communicators. So we can peak them because they're the very analytical people. Those are the individuals that are thinking about problems. And we think about 70% of communication or miscommunication happens because of this. Okay, now you have me with engaged. A story. Share some relatable story. I remember this one time I was communicating with a high D, and he said shared his thoughts about this, and I cut him off. And I remember that communication went completely left because now those individuals that are high I's or those individuals that are S's that really value that connection piece of things, like you appeal to them. And last, with an action, in with some clear actionable step that everybody can take. For those individuals that are task oriented, they have some type of marching orders that they can take away from everything that you just shared. So when you think about this, you have individual communication strategies, but then you also have group communication strategies as well. And all these things are all type of things that you should take into consideration when it comes to the rules of engagement. And that rules of engagement was very much so intentional because think about this: rules of engagement. There are rules of communication that lead to more engagement, but there are rules to communication that leads to less engagement as well. When you abide by the rules of engagement, there is a connection. There is more engagement that you get from your audience. There's more engagement that you get from the people that you're communicating with. And the more engaged we are, the more likely we are to make sure that we make it to the destination that we desire. What is the purpose of your communication? Every time we share a message, there is some type of goal that you're trying to reach. What we cannot do is approach communication from a way that does not take into consideration that we have some place that we're headed to. And if we have some place that we're headed to, how can we make sure that the people that we communicated with, that they make it there with us as well? And so these are the strategies and the tips that I have for you all tonight. All about now you're speaking my language. And I want you to think about that. There are so many languages that we can speak. There are a lot of people that speak a lot of different languages, a lot of people that speak languages that maybe you're a little bit less familiar with. But we can all kind of get to the place where we say, okay, I'm going to grow. I'm going to utilize this platinum rule as it relates to communication and figure out what's the way that the people that I'm surrounded by, the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, that they desire to be spoken to. And so this is my information for you all. I would love to, what I'm saying, to get connected with you all. Like if you have questions, this is my personal information. Send me emails, connect with me online. I would love to communicate more as it relates to anything organizational, climate, and culture. Talk about communication. These are all the things that I'm into. And so thank you all so much. This is another segment of the DISC Advantage. And if any of you all are interested in actually taking a DISC assessment, please reach out to me. I can send you a link. We're going to talk about what that looks like for not only yourself, but also for those within your organization. This is what I do, and I help a lot of organizations grow as it relates to communication, collaboration, and having individuals that have a more long-term commitment to their organization. So I appreciate you all. I thank you so much for your time. This is another segment of the DISC Advantage. Until next week.